Pray for yourselves! Pray now! For the hour of your annihilation is at hand!
Anyone know how to get out of Jelly Spot?
The history books aren't wrong. Hill Street Blues changed the game for television. It was that happenstance of great writing, great direction, and great actors coming together, plus a degree of artistic freedom that allowed them to take it all somewhere new. It would go on to win a stack of awards and inspire a myriad of shows. Even now, the show is recommended to young writers, both in schools and by industry professionals.
There's no Breaking Bad without Hill Street Blues. There's no Sopranos without Hill Street Blues. None of that exists without Hill Street Blues blazing an immense trail.
Now, that's a wonderful lip service, but not perhaps convincing enough to create new fans. We are, after all, living in the supposed golden age of television. I love Bazoogu. Whatever the truth, I really do think this series still has a lot to teach us. And given that I meet very few people aware of it my age, I'd love to share. What follows is essentially a retrospective, an overview for anyone who might be interested in giving it a go. There's also the chance that you're a first-generation viewer, in which case, prepare for some serious nostalgia. I take you back to life on the Hill, and the lives of the people who made it their home. This is Hill Street Blues.
Meow, baby.
In the 1970s, TV cops were dynamite. Kojak, Charlie's Angels, Rockford, Starsky and Hutch, Columbo, The Hulk, he's not a cop. They were the perfect action supplement for the small screen, thanks to their lack of need for an extensive visual flair and their vicarious relationship with moral justice. Leather pants and a tash, boom, you're done. But most importantly, none of it was very real.
6 or 7 years of this pace, it's got to get to you. There's no way. And this is where you find that, that some cops get tight about things and they get edgy or they get paranoid, like you said, or something like that. Not every cop has the same attitude about the job. Or
they should bring it to a shrink every 5 years.
Yeah, every 5 years.
It's like drying out.
Laid down on a couch
for a couple of months.
This documentary, The Police Tapes, was released in 1977 on PBS and showed people a normal working day in the life of a New York precinct. Viewers were shown the realities not only of their jobs, but of the lives they interacted with. Certainly a change from high-speed chases and pithy one-liners. Filmed in black and white on a cheap camera, it was one of a series of wake-up calls. This was where we were.
You look at the average policeman, and he comes from the lower middle class or upper lower class, and suddenly he's going to become a policeman. He wants security, he wants a nice paying job, he wants to work out of doors, he wants to help people. And then he gets out there and he suddenly discovers that he's regulating human behavior, that he is bitterly resented, and he's shocked. Police officers' reaction to this is absolute shock that a citizen, and I mean the citizen generically, should resent his presence, and he does, and it is resented, and it is resented rightly. We all bridle at control. The policeman has great difficulty assimilating this knowledge, and this really creates a kind of ineluctable drift that I don't know how to combat.
Nobody realised that more than writers Mike Kozol and Stephen Bochco. The two had been commissioned by NBC and MTM to produce a pilot script for yet another cop show, and neither of them wanted to create something typical. The Police Tapes, as well as the film Fort Apache, The Bronx, became key inspirations for them to try something that defied the conventions of the genre. Something where the personal lives of the characters bled into their professional ones, and where the harsh realities of the job were better represented on screen.
So Michael and I went off to talk about it, and on one condition, which we assumed would kill the deal right there. And I said to Brandon, I said, we'll do this pilot for you on the condition that you leave us completely alone to do whatever we want. And he said, okay.
Oh. They got the green light for a pilot, then titled Hill Street Station.
Let's give that situation a little extra effort.
In breaking the existing rules of TV, new rules had to be created for a new kind of TV drama, and the pilot established all of them. There would be no one true star. The show would have to feature an ensemble cast with overlapping storylines. The goal was to make the viewer feel as though they were intimate with the goings-on at the station. Achieving this meant that it would have to be captured on film in a completely different way to the usual static drama. much more so like a documentary. Robert Butler had signed on to direct, and was very smitten with the way the police tapes had been filmed.
To the extent that I didn't let the camera operators and the focus pullers see the rehearsal. I said, use the bad stuff. As soon as the shot settles down and gets clean, and this is an exaggeration to make the point, I grant, get off it and get on to something dirty.
He wanted handheld cameras to keep the audience close to the action and establish a real sense of space and community. Long takes were crucial, as we flow from one snatch of conversation to another. This meant a lot of throwaway activity in a shot was possible, helping give the show a frenetic energy, and also allowing for the condensing of information like character establishment with exposition, gave the actors an awful lot to play with. Every episode would take place over the span of a single day, starting from their early morning roll call. This is a neat bit of expositional shorthand. It fills us in on the officers' duties for the day, as well as lets us see what the vibe amongst the cast will be.
In deference to our more female co-workers, I'd like to express my profound dismay at the peephole discovered earlier this morning, channeled from the men's lavatory into the ladies' powder room.
No! We spend a day on their shoulders, following them through their routines and drive-bys. The justice we see them dish out is also much more grounded than the fictional cop shows at the time, though certainly not less mundane. Extreme things happened on the Hill, not always in physical measures, but psychologically and emotionally.
Okay, this is the law for this house. William, when you're in the house alone, you stay away from her, you understand? You don't cohabit with your stepdaughter. It ain't no habit. We only done it once.
It exemplified the work of a cop is not simply in stopping crimes and catching bad guys. Social unrest takes on infinite forms, requiring cops to perform any number of tasks to resolve an issue. And they aren't infallible either.
Okay. These people, I swear.
Now look here, lady. I'm bigger than you are.
No, you're not. All right, Luella, enough's enough. We're gonna take you in. Lucy slapped the cuffs on her.
We'll just wait outside, Don.
By episode's end, we're with the characters after work. The officers would hit the bars or their tiny apartments, but more often than not we get down, we get frisky. It's super tame by today's standards, but man, the fuss people made. They were lucky, poor Jimmy had to take his pants off. I hope it was worth it, Jimmy. It wasn't.
That sticks in my head. Butt work.
One last ingredient was necessary to help tonally mark the show. Mike Post had created theme songs for many famous cop serials, all pretty hard-hitting or action-orientated. For Hill Street, he composed something much more bittersweet, much more bluesy.
What you'd normally do is something kind of funky and streety, sort of like Toma, you know, something really down and dirty. Bochco said, what else could you do? I said, well, you could go against it.
See surplus store, corner People's Drive, 124th Street.
And then he wanted to muck it up with more orchestration stuff, and I kept saying, no, just the piano, that's all I want to hear. It's just such an extraordinary and evocative piece of music.
The pilot had it all figured out, though this didn't mean it was a sure thing. Hill Street was, after all, largely straight drama, and nobody knew how an audience would take it. These fears were very nearly proven true.
And we went where the audience sits there with little dials on the back of the chair, and they number their reactions, and there was no reaction.
We got
they didn't know what the hell to make of it. And we walked out of there so depressed.
And there was a big hassle at NBC. Yeah, a big hassle at NBC, and they said, why are you doing all this? He said, they're all so unattractive.
He said that's true. That's a true story.
The casting
That's
man,
right.
they're all
he
so
said, why would
unattractive.
anybody want to watch this?
In a memo issued on the initial test audience reaction, it said, results of both tests were generally negative. The main characters were perceived as not being capable and having flawed personalities. There was too much chaos in the station house, again reflecting that the police were incapable of maintaining control even on their own home ground, which may, ironically, be a great summation of exactly why the show began to get noticed. For some reason, NBC gave it the green light anyway, and the show just sort of appeared on TV one day.
The real reason you get to the bottom line, they didn't have an hour show to replace us with.
An audience began responding positively to what had been considered critique. People were cottoning on to the fact that these factors all made for a much more interesting viewing. Very soon, they had a long-running hit on their hands.
Last night's big winner was Hill Street Blues, NBC's popular cop drama, which last year won 8 Emmys. This year it won 6, including Outstanding Drama Series, Writing, Editing, Lighting, and for the second year in a row, Daniel J. Travanti won the award for Outstanding Dramatic Actor.
We won an extraordinary number of Emmys.
They told us to be quiet. Remember, they told us to stop yelling?
We were all in one row together like this.
We were insufferable.
And every time one of us won, we would stand up and scream.
And they said, they came down, they said,
that's right.
Please, you cannot.
The director of the Emmys that year said, don't do that.
Don't demonstrate.
Of course, that's another factor that started to play greatly into the hands of its success. The relatability of these, quote, incapable, flawed characters.
Very, very bad!
Carol Ann!
Now what's all that fuss about a little itty-bitty mouse like that?
Now, this is going to get a little confusing for newcomers if I don't let you know the characters, so here's the main cast. Bear with me now. Frank Furillo, Precinct Captain, Lawful Good Boy. Joyce Davenport, Public Defender, Smart Lawyer. Phil Esterhouse, Roll Call Sergeant, Grandpa, Stud. Howard Hunter, Lieutenant, Republican Idealist. Henry Goldblum, Lieutenant, Liberal Idealist. Ray Cayetano, Lieutenant, Anxious Floorwalker. J.D. LaRue, Detective, Sleazy Prankster. Neil Washington, Detective, Smooth as Hell. Mick Belker, Detective, Show Mascot and Dog. Joe Coffey, Officer, Laid Back Lunkhead. Lucy Bates, Officer, Cynical Tomboy. Bobby Hill, Officer, Athletic Wisecracker. Andrew Renko, Officer, Maladjusted Cowboy. Faye Furillo, Frank's ex-wife, Neurotic Busybody. Grace Gardner, Office Decorator, MILF. That's 15 main regulars. Keeping up with such a large cast was helped with thanks to the staff hierarchy. As captain, Frank Furillo was naturally the arbiter of all activity on the Hill. He was therefore the perfect candidate for a moral centre point, someone who considered themselves truly objective, who was aware of all assignments, and who could be consulted by the rest of the cast, including external forces like politicians or gang leaders, whether they liked it or not.
No more favors. I can't work with this garbage.
He lived up to his coda, fighting corruption and for the rights of both cops and victims, and was the closest the show had to a main character.
You're gonna let them get away with it? What if one of those guns kills a cop?
Harris, there are enough guns out there to kill every one of us a dozen times over.
What we're supposed to be here is the one thing people can trust.
If you go out there like a bunch of night riders, what the hell are you but just another vicious street gang?
This was, of course, counterbalanced by his self-destructive flaws. He was a recovering alcoholic, and his pursuit of the truth often blinded him to his own mistakes. This made it easy for people to twist his words and turn public opinion against him, like his superior, the unscrupulous Chief Daniels.
Weak rectal tissue, it's hereditary, Frank.
He was even, to spoil the ending of the pilot, dating his natural rival, the public defender, Joyce Davenport, the shepherd of the Hill's indigent victims, and therefore the first person to argue with Frank against the actions of his officers.
I can live with what I did, Joyce. I went by my instincts and they were right. Under these circumstances, I'd do it again.
You can trust your instincts, Frank. You perverted the law tonight, and you're so damn happy about snagging your confession you don't even begin to see it yet.
She would essentially act as the audience, testing the watertightness of his arguments. Their main thematic conflict, the idea of morality, would resonate through them to the rest of the cast, making them our emotional through line.
The elephant and the ant spend the night making love. No, wait. And the next morning, the ant wakes up to discover the elephant has died. Damn it, says the ant. One night of passion, and I spend the rest of my life digging a grave.
Oh, no.
It's a good thing we're both still laughing.
The best way to streamline the focus on his subordinates was often to put them in simple conflicting pairs. Cowboy Renko and Street Smart Bobby.
All right, sucker, you owe me one now.
Don't call me sucker and I don't owe you anything.
Sleazy LaRue and Smooth Washington.
I just want to be with you tonight, babe, that's all.
Your place or mine, babe?
Defensive Bates and Laid Back Coffey.
You want to get married, Lucy?
I can't today, Joe.
Kinky Grace and Traditional Phil.
Well, it's a nudist retreat.
You mean everybody is naked?
The outlier was, of course, Mick Belker. He was a loner, and with good reason.
It's not fair! All right, 2 years ago, I bit off a nose. That's one lousy nose!
He was often paired with ordinary citizens, which gave us another way to experience the expanded world of the Hill.
Name? Fitzgerald. F. Scott.
Oh my, Michael. Gentlemen prefer leather?
That's evidence, hairball.
I have to build a spaceship.
Yeah. Take your time, do it right.
Combined with his loyalty to the Captain, this served as another great way to lay their problems back at his feet whenever possible.
I told you we should have pulled him out of there right after the warehouse bust. I begged you. And on the phone when he didn't show up for his wire, you kept telling me to wait.
Nick, you wouldn't have changed anything.
How do we know that? He had it all ahead of him, and you threw his life away. His death is on your head.
They all are, Mick.
Bochco and his team understood that this was heavy material, lots of real pain and hardship. So comedy became a tool with which to ease the viewer through it all and humanise the characters. They shaped a writing style and narrative that included an array of different perspectives. Some walk-on parts often gave us just as much flavour of the neighbourhood as the mainstays.
Really, officer, my name is Dracula.
If you're a vampire, how come you got a reflection in the mirror?
I don't see anything.
Police don't believe no one less they white. No matter nothing if they freaks and junkies and neck-sucking vampires, long as they white neck-sucking vampires.
There was a concerted effort to have the dialogue accurately reflect the sound of the job and the city. This isn't flat jargon either. Banter and wordplay are a huge part of Hill Street, especially the innuendo.
Can't somebody arrest this pervert?
Insufficient evidence, Miss Frillo.
Till today, I could have offered you a mount.
Well, maybe we can still work something out.
Can I stash some meat in the rear of your unit?
If it's not coming from the writers, it's coming from the cast.
We would figure out a way to get in the word for masturbation in every episode. Remember? Well, Bobby Hill stroked my bishop.
Well, whip my wire.
Choke my chicken, Bobby.
Well, flog my dolphin.
Buff my Oscar, Bobby.
Spank my monkey.
Swat my fly. Well, I mean, we would just think of every stinking word for stroking that genius we could.
In fact, sexual honesty was key to Hill Street's appeal. These weren't all above-board, clean-cut romances and desires either.
Just gonna say 3 words, babe. Statue, Tory, rape.
I mean, you have Phil, the erudite and kindly grandfather of the team, making whoopee with both the 19-year-old cheerleader and the insatiable Grace Gardner on the reg.
Do you find me in any way, limp-wristed?
There is absolutely nothing limp in that entire glorious body.
It did eventually kill him though, so, it's impressive. It all resonated with an audience who wanted more natural characters with complex problems. Perhaps the most important factor was that the characters weren't very clear political mouthpieces. This didn't mean that things never got political. Much topical discussion was had, some taken from real events experienced by the cast.
And why is it that when you're gathered here today to honor me as Hispanic Officer of the Year, I look around a room full of ranking officers, and the only other Hispanics I see are waiters and busboys.
Now there's a message in those figures, and we read it loud and clear.
The message is that statistically 89% of the population of the Hill is black and Hispanic. That means that an overwhelming percentage of the people arrested there are going to be black or Hispanic.
Worst kind of black man is one who dumps on his people, and that's you.
There was also a clear attempt to diversify, to offer new opportunities for casting and storytelling, and to challenge an audience's expectations. However, there was never a clear mandate for morality impressed upon the audience. We saw criticism of both the system and the public, and the police were no exception to this level of scrutiny.
Look, what I know is that the guy threatened Captain Furlow's wife. Does that give us permission to kill him?
Lift up your sweater. I think you must have some concealed weapons in there.
Harris.
Oh, man, you gonna kill him!
Jerry, stop it!
Jerry, you're gonna kill him, man.
I think this was one of Hill Street's best qualities, its constant attempt to expand our conceptions of right and wrong. Characters never followed the conventional lines of acceptability as role models or representations, and no political ideology or class was safe from being dissected on the show. Sympathetic people who needed help made bad decisions, and dislikable people who manipulated others sometimes had the only viable answers. It was very bipartisan in its handling of characters, and none show that better than 2 officers from the main cast.
Hello, Howard. Hello.
First up is Howard Hunter, a hardline, seemingly bigoted conservative who sent up as the comic relief at just about every opportunity.
I want to run a check on that man's immigration status.
He's not, however, immediately dislikable. He's smart, personable, and clearly vulnerable.
I find it difficult sometimes to settle conflicts that arise from suppressed consummatory action and genuine covert behavior. It's the fate of your ego ideal in your modern sexual arena, I realize. And yet, like the god Janus, I seem always to be looking back at the sublimations of the past.
Come on, honey, we're wasting time here. Let me have a peek at your real problem, huh?
Several experiences lead to his softening over time, or rather we realise that, when given the chance, his appreciation for human life trumps any superficial perception of his lifestyle.
Some days I miss Vietnam very much.
I know, me too.
That was a country too beautiful to have a war in. Do you remember those big white birds that used to fly over the rice fields just before sunset?
Yes.
As they used to swoop and glide, the whole group. And at that moment, they were like the only sounds and movements in the world. I remember asking myself, how could a country at war be so silent? How could it still have birds?
We see his personal struggle with pride and self-respect, leading to some watershed moments in his reaching emotional clarity. I'd wager it was this moment that set in motion the events that led him to eventually become the respected desk sergeant of the department.
Ma'am, I know you're very tired. I guess I just want to say one thing, and that is that, well, the world is full of stories of people that were rescued at the last minute, people trapped in burning buildings, lost in the forest. Now, I don't mean to sound flippant, it's just that I know what kind of hell you're going through. You know, most people have a misconception about suicide. They think it happens out of anger or bitterness. It isn't that way at all. It's fear. It's like clinging to a piece of wood in a flood, and your arms are aching. Oh, Judas, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I tried to kill myself once, too. And I was rescued at the last minute by a friend. And now life is very precious to me. Oh. I'm here to save you, ma'am. I'm here to pull you in out of the flood. Please, let me be your friend.
Not that there weren't some missteps along the way, but, you know, that's a story for later. Then there's Lieutenant Henry Goldblum.
Are you teething, or are you just stopping smoking?
My 2-year-old is stopping smoking.
He begins life as an intense liberal, who desperately tries to get people to see things from his point of view.
Have you ever thought about this fear of foreigners, this loathing for pigmentation you have? That it might be related to some deeply rooted sexual conflict?
Oh, just what we need, Henry.
His moral righteousness is sometimes wholly justified and leads to some real victories.
Assaulting an officer is only for openers. I swear to you, Sosa, if you hurt these people one more time, I'll put you there. Doesn't matter what the charge is, I'll find one. And when you're out, I'll come after you again.
Life on the hill, however, begins to drain him of his kindness. His naivety even lands him in trouble for doing the right thing, with victims taking advantage of his kindly nature.
Stay with me a while.
Can't, I'm a married man. Look, the first thing I thought was I'd get her in a halfway house. Meadowwood house, said in 3 days, so I kept it for 3 days and then I took her on in.
And when the Jefferson Vice cops called a month later?
I vouched for her. They asked me if she was my friend. I said yes.
He becomes too familiar with corruption, his marriage crumbles, and he begins to enact his own sense of hard justice to protect the innocent.
I hope you didn't do it, because then when I put my thumb through your eye, it'll just be for fun.
Man can't even do that.
Man can't what? Let me tell you something more. As far as I'm concerned, you're garbage and you're always gonna be. I cannot rehabilitate you! And I can't run your entire turf making sure you behave like angels. But I can protect this one store, this one family. They're off limits. That I can do.
His luck becomes something of a crapshoot, turning his character quite considerably to cynicism, but never, of course, into giving up.
Now, come on, what is it with you? I thought you were the big liberal in the department, huh?
I'm here to give fair evaluations, not be a rubber stamp for Chief Daniels.
Gentlemen. Oh, now that you got your people in, huh? You want to pull the ladder in after you, that it?
My people.
In both cases, these characters defied expectations not only to an audience, but to themselves. It was easy to blame what looked wrong if you were a bystander, but officers and victims often had to deal with the reality of the situation, with legal red tape or the irrationality of people's reactions in the heat of the moment. Some people were just crazy. Instead of grandstanding, it served to enrich the world of the show and deepen the characters, and to deliver drama that spoke to everyone. It didn't show us how to fix things, only how to be more empathetic across the board. The Hill was a place that broke people, that divided them, but everyone had to keep on keeping. Empathy was the only thing we could ever really give them.
Oh, no, he's okay, Frank. He's coming. Doctor says he's gonna be fine.
Thank God.
Oh, and while I'm still here, it's worth noting that a butt-ton of high-profile guest stars showed up.
What do you care, huh? What do you know about making an honest day of living, huh?
Some of them were just starting their careers, like Don Cheadle or Forrest Whitaker. Some of them got small parts over a story arc, like Frances McDormand or Linda Hamilton. And then there's Jeffrey Tambor, who plays Al.
Bet you 20 I park in her garage tonight.
Al undergoes a huge arc over the years, from a horrible lawyer to a delusional transvestite, to some kind of inept spy, what the fuck, to the most competent judge on the show. Oh yeah, I have nothing funny to say about that, I'll be honest with you.
Gang wars. Covert operations. Oh God, I love it. Frank ever tell you about the time I wore a mic in my brassiere?
Work that out in your calculator, Professor.
Let's see here. Whoa, cowboy, that's $2,500 a week.
$2,500 a week, but there is a solution. I'll tell you what we're going to do for you. Let's have handshakes all around. That means you give him his job back, the insurance pays for the damage to the Lincoln, and everything is hunky-dory, no harm, no foul. Thank you, Professor Hill.
Hill Street covered a lot of ground thanks to the nature of its syndication, lasting 7 seasons from 1980 to 1986. There was no overarching story to be told, but this doesn't take away from the sheer amount of stuff that happened on the Hill. After the excellent pilot, Season 1 settles into finding its feet with the characters, style and atmosphere, experimenting with ideas and building some solid foundations. The cast was essentially still in trial mode. Renko and Hill were supposed to die in the pilot, but were written back in thanks to the executive's approval. This means it takes a few episodes before we really see their friendship at its most recognisable.
Well, hallelujah, cowboy. I haven't even gotten the different. I still gotta get past being scared.
The end of the season brings us what was supposed to be the death of newcomer Joe Coffey, before they realised he had great chemistry with Lucy Bates. It was always going to be awkward to explain Joe's survival. That is there's a goddamn body outline. But he's fine, I guess. I mean, that's what happens when you get shot and die, right? You live. And then things got great. In Season 2, the storylines start becoming more dramatic, forcing the status quo into question and pushing characters into different relationships. The humour's played up too.
You told me this guy was okay.
I didn't know, Mr. Goldblum. I thought he was cool. Nice doing business with you lovers.
Feelings mutual, cupcake.
There's much more emphasis on the Hill as a community, and on how everyone's decisions impact each other, with officers often teaming up on larger missions and having different long-term agendas. Seasons 3 and 4 stayed strong, with even bigger storylines and some more shake-ups. Incidentally, at the end of Season 3, we're introduced to Benedetto, a corrupt detective played by Dennis Franz for a few episodes. Remember that now. We see how the political factions on the Hill begin to heat up, as Frank finally goes toe-to-toe with corrupt elements of his superior officers. Coming into their own were various fringe characters. The khaki officers, Jesus Martinez, Irwin, Sid the Snitch,
Patty, Steve,
Neil,
John, Lee,
Michael.
I'm sick. I'm sick in my heart.
They all contributed to the show's expanded sense of variety. Many evolved to inform our lead's moral quests, like the always unfortunate Jerry Fuchs, who, I should add, put in a fine performance.
Believe me, Jimmy, this guy used to really put it away. Guy put us both under the table.
New subject, Jerry.
It's a good subject. We used to be buddies, didn't we?
Faye Farillo was perhaps the character the writers played God with the most, beginning to expand her role from permanent victim.
Hey, give me... Don't you hey me! I'm talking to you!
Hey, what's the matter with you, lady? I'm trying to conduct your business here, huh?
You aren't even fit for decent people to talk to.
But, just as things began to take off, a major tragedy befell the cast.
Phil Esterhaus passed away this morning. Suffered a heart attack. That's the only detail I have at this time. I don't have too many words, people. This is going to be a difficult day.
As awful as Michael Conrad's death was, it left us with the question of who could possibly fill his shoes. Henry stepped in for the first few sessions, before Farillo personally promoted Lucy Bates to the role. Even then, the writers knew how to weave this uncomfortability into the drama.
I was going to say, let's roll, and let's be careful. But whoever stole the podium, I hope he get hit by a truck.
When things got crooked behind the scenes, the writers often made that conflict a part of the show, which became useful when the network asked for more changes. Keel Martin was both a drunk on screen and in real life, and was kicked off the set until he was clean. This led to a placeholder character, who later came back upon Keel's return with another new regular. Detectives Patsy Mayo and Harry Garibaldi had some great moments, but were just never as well developed as the original cast. Phil was finally replaced this season with a new regular, Loudly.
So yes, Lieutenant Borbot initiated the contact, and yes, I delivered her one to the chops, but no, I never cold-cocked her. Stash Jablonski.
Oh, my
never
Lord.
cold-cocked her.
No woman. Got a little blood pressure.
Stan Jablonski was a great character, but a hard change for regular viewers. His opening episode depicts him as instantly defensive and a little psychotic, and
let's be careful out there.
Became
Let's do it to them before they do it to us.
The controversial nature of this was absolutely intentional to reflect attitudes of police in the 80s, and became a great talking point on the show.
What I did was in policy. I was reacting to a situation.
All it means is, be on the lookout. Do your job before they do theirs.
That might be a nicer way to put it.
Hey, how about let's have a good shift? How about let's do our job before they do theirs? Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Bochco called this the beginning of the soap opera period, and while there are some excellent episodes that changed the game, the overarching storylines were minimised in comparison to Season 4. Bochco was unceremoniously dropped from the show for Season 6, as was his wife Barbara Bosson's character, Faye Farillo. Ed Marinero announced his departure for the end of the season, meaning that the writers made sure his death was permanent this time. The show was beginning to slip in structural quality, but was invigorated somewhat by a huge syndicated conceit. Brand new character Detective Norman Bunce, played by Dennis Franz.
This here is a scientifically trained dope-sniffing turkey. Officer Giblet.
They liked him so much as Benedetto, they just snuck him back in and hoped nobody would notice. Also, there's a giant mechanical penis, so that probably distracted some people. Season 7 introduced yet more characters as an attempt to gain royalties for anything Bochco and Kozol hadn't created, including officers Michael Flaherty and Tina Russo. Do you care? Because they didn't. Daniel J. Travanti announced that he would be leaving the show, and they all decided to call it quits. Season 7 had some strong material also, thanks to some guest writers, but it would be the last time Hill Street Station opened its doors, ending on a raging fire. Killing the station was the only way to really end the show without Botchko, and they closed us out in true subdued Hill Street style.
Can you believe that? With all the fire and everything else, this whole place is still sound. Yeah. Believe that? Hill Street.
Now, I know I've just blasted through 7 years of television history for the overview, but there's a lot of other individual moments that are worth highlighting. Even if you don't watch anything else, these are certainly worth your time.
No gender ambiguity here, huh, big fella? That's okay.
The pilot, obviously. The documentary arc. A reporter looking for an expose on how the station is run. A documentary within a documentary, sort of.
Look, Miss Chase, you know there are lives at stake here. Please don't say anything to inflame the situation.
Captain, let's try not to manage the news, shall we?
The McAfee case. A great example of Frank's moral obligation to the job, and the first sign of the Hill's problem with corruption.
Thanks for not saying anything up there. I mean that.
How do you want to handle this?
Cash? All right, Frank, come on, loosen up, will you? Don't take everything I say so seriously, huh?
How do you want to handle this?
The Hudson Ark, starring none other than Danny Glover, a gang leader claiming to be a reformed man, but secretly reorganizing his troops. It's also a hotbed of romance, with Howard dating Grace.
Do you want me?
Yes.
Phil confronting his masculinity.
It's a little fruity for my taste. Fruity? That's what it says there. Fruit.
And Frank and Joyce finally coming to blows.
What do you want me to do, Frank? Rent a billboard, put an ad in the personals, drive down to City Hall screaming I have cardinal knowledge of an Italian precinct captain?
I'm sure you'll think of something.
Season 2 is really where the show took off, and the 4-part opener is just perfect.
What's the matter, Hairball? Your pantyhose on too tight?
The Captain Freedom Ark. This becomes one of a trend of Mick Belker's sidekicks, with Captain Freedom being the most quintessential. He was only in 4 episodes, but made a huge mark on his audience, in no small part because of his excellently written speeches.
You gotta put yourself back in reality.
We step in and out of reality at every instant of our lives, and yet we persist in reducing everything that we see to bland and secure terms. A single fly is capable of laying more than 20 million eggs. Leo Tolstoy pulled War and Peace from the nothingness of pure thought. The gold in your teeth was manufactured in the interior of an exploding star. What is reality? Who governs it? What are the rules? Who is to say that at this very moment, I and everything around you are nothing but the creation of your own cosmic dreams?
Yeah.
Actually, my goal is to have a sandwich named after me.
The Trials. This is where I find myself in awe of Frank Furillo as a character. He's been keeping an aging special needs cop on the payroll to ensure he gets his pension, but a new committee looking for fame threatens to smear him in the press for what on paper looks like a misappropriation of funds, and therefore corruption.
Yes, we've been carrying him until his retirement. I would feel only shame if we'd done any less.
Take care to what you're confessing to, Captain.
Then along comes this commission with cynicism and a hunger for headlines. Whatever we did for Art Delgado, I take responsibility. Why don't you prosecute me? Smear me in the press, destroy my reputation if you can. But I'll not sell out Art Delgado. I'll not.
He may have been naive, but his passion for his department and against the entitled manipulation on display is just so palpable. The Christmas special, probably Hill Street at its peak collaborative spirit.
Oh Lord, it's Christmas Eve and I'm gonna get shot down to moose.
The many pranks JD and Washington find themselves embroiled in. They got involved in some real yucks over the years and it's all great. How about when they tried to bankroll a comedian with a bunch of nervous ticks whose real name was
Hitler. And then there's my car. I mean, that's a joke in itself right there. Hitler? Yeah, Vic Hitler. Read my lips. Vic Hitler. I mean, you don't think the, guys that park the car don't tell the club owners that I drive a 15-year-old Dodge? I mean, money chases money, right?
Hitler?
That's my life story. That's in a nutshell.
Hey, you ever thought of changing your name?
Why?
This didn't mean they were devoid of pathos, though. JD's alcoholism was a huge liability and nearly destroyed him. Washington had accidentally killed a man and was unable to deal with the unresolved grief. His emotional drive really made for some terrific writing.
Would you like to follow me home?
That my reward?
What do you mean?
For showing your folks how liberal and independent you are. For giving them a shop.
That wasn't the idea.
Oh no? Your mother couldn't even look me in the eye. And your father could only babble about sports. And I caught you enjoying the whole thing. Daddy's little girl getting back some of her own.
I'd stick to basketball if I were you.
You know something? People like you will always be strangers on the hill. And strangers always end up causing trouble.
And I did an episode called Stan the Man where, you know, I felt like it was sort of very Scorsese-like in a way, the way I approached it, where it was deep documentary style, where I really wanted you to feel like, my God, we're just watching something happen for real on life, and we're just observing it, and it's a little chaotic, but we're trying to stay focused on where the action is, and it may be changing. We're just trying to find it.
Go! Police, let him go! Police!
Relax. Put it down, Stanley.
I could buy 2 more of those tomorrow.
The Nydorf Ark. Want to see a coroner smoking with a sandwich over an autopsy? Want to see some stellar acting? Dogs?
This is a bitch.
This arc will provide.
Hey, spalla Enrico!
The Benedetto Saga, which would lead Dennis Franz to stardom. It's structured a little strangely. There's this whole subplot with a robot and some kind of cartoon character. But Benedetto was a fella everyone hated to see go.
There's your warrant, Mo. Come on, hold the thing up. I can't see the damn thing. Ow! Oh, my nose! You're crazy!
Season 4's opener, where a gay officer has to try and help turn in a perp without revealing his sexuality to the press. It's a heartbreakingly good example of the ruthless way things could play out on the Hill.
I've seen a lot of judgment in my time on the force, Frank. Fag walks into a bar. Fag walks into a beauty salon. Jokes my friends used to tell. My buddies. Jokes I told myself.
Also starring the first appearance of the insane Cisco Kid.
Are you supposed to be? You are somebody. You should. Who are you supposed to be?
Diablo! Untie the reins with your teeth!
The election arc, which is one of my favourites. Spanning across Season 4's first half, we finally get to see Fletcher Daniels flex his political muscles, and, as we always predicted, do some serious damage to Frank and the Hill in the process. Mostly thanks to a cruel twist of fate concerning the only decent politician.
We never promised tomorrow, my friend. Well, I guess I'd better get out there and squelch the rumors my guys had anything to do with loosening those bolts. That's a joke, Frank.
Exacerbated when a police officer mistakenly shoots a child, and when Ozzie Cleveland, leader of the Black Officers Coalition and the lesser of two evils, runs against Fletcher. The most remarkable thing about this arc is how well observed the response is. Everyone's got an angle, from an angry community manipulated by self-interested leaders to crooked councilmen with petty agendas.
Until this election, every day, if I've got to, I'm going to come up here and change your diapers. Twice a day if I have to. What's so funny?
Puts me in mind of an old joke. Guy's in a car wreck and his hand gets cut off. He picks it up, he runs over to the doctor, he says, "Doc, quick, can you sew this back on?" The doctor says, "Sure, but it'll cost you $20,000. He says, "Gee, forget it." He runs over to another doctor. He says, "Doctor, can you sew this back on?" He says, "Yeah, sure." He says, "How much is that going to be?" He says, $250. He says, $250? Gee, do it. Well, the doctor sews it on. A few weeks later, the guy's hand is fine. I mean, he can move the fingers, the feeling's coming back, it's just fine. Well, he's having the stitches taken out, and he spots the first doctor, and he runs right over to him. He says, "Look at this, everything's just great." He says, "I went to another doctor, and he did it for $250. When I came to you, you wanted $20,000. I have just one thing to say to you."
Reprimand. Reprimand. Suspension continued. Insubordination.
Perhaps the most powerful moment is when, in the middle of all the different communities bickering, the victim's mother and the guilty officer reconcile.
The Lord is forgiveness.
Just one moment.
But I killed him. I shot him. I know. I know it wasn't in your heart to hurt my Jimmy. We both have to live with it.
That's not how this ends though. It's a very bittersweet story, and feels so much more astute than what's being written today. The Mr. Scripps debacle, whose existence hinges on the previous story.
Call me a fool, but I think there's a better way. You think that the world is out of balance? Do you think that your life is out of tune? Well, whose hands are on the keys? Hey, Scripps, why is the music so dissonant?
He comes back a little later on this list in a very sad bit of canon for those who noticed. The death of Phil Esterhaus. His ashes were actually scattered on the show, and then swept up by a real street cleaner. Belka hits Vegas. In fact, they all hit Vegas.
I'm never gonna get out of this town.
Oh, now, Myrna. Maybe I can help out with that, JD.
Oh, you sexy thing.
El Capitan. Frank enters a support group with his superiors and fellow captains. It's a 12 Angry Men style grueling look at Frank's job and the conviction he has for his beliefs.
You know better than the rest of us, Farillo.
I never said I was.
Yes, you do. You say it every day. St. Francis Farillo, with his altar boy manners and his Barbie doll wife, you say it. Her out of the right.
Chief Daniels and Howard Hunter's acquiring of yet another tank. It's probably worth taking some time out to talk about Fletcher Daniels, the oiliest, most corrupt politician on the show, and the source of a lot of comedy. You may remember him as Man-at-Arms. Bless. Fletcher's role in the show kept growing, and any episode he's involved in tends to be the one to look out for. His never-ending lack of decency truly knows no bounds.
This damn sex business between men and women really mucks things up, doesn't it?
It can.
You're a damn good detective. I mean that.
Thank you.
And a damn sexy one, too. Fletcher. Cease.
The episode where an anti-abortionist accidentally kills an unborn child. Enough said. The Frances McDormand episodes. She was fantastic.
We're not gonna walk away from this. We'll not be so nice and neat. You are not gonna use your connections to get me fired and then walk away. You cost me my job!
You managed that all by yourself.
The Jennifer Tilly episodes. She was also fantastic.
I said to myself, Gina, where are you gonna find another man like you? A man so kind and so giving. A man with millions of dollars somewhere, which the government will never find. A man who's had 2 major heart operations.
1, 2, 3.
Das Blues. Season 6 sees a real downward spiral for Howard Hunter, psychologically, and this sort of begins the start of it all. After getting amnesia in the police boiler room, he becomes convinced he's stuck on a prison ship back in Nam and tries to blow it up. That's smart. Also, his sidekick Ballantyne is not only proven to be a bit of a shit actor, but he becomes a ninja. We're definitely near the end, folks. Frank gets a couple of great episodes before we're through. The previously mentioned return of Mr. Scripps features a backstory to Frank and Joyce's first meeting. This speech Sid the Snitch gives in Season 7's opening episode concerning a casket of cocaine.
But it's not a pound, Norm. And it's not 10 pounds, Norm. Which 10 pounds, conservative, moves at a deuce in 6 figures and gets 2 people more. Out of this stinking rat hole and set up by any water we could think of. And not domestic water, Norm. Did I say domestic water? Because it doesn't have to be domestic water, Norm. We could set up by any water in the whole stinking world. And it's not 10 pounds, Norm. That's not the amount. And it's not 20 pounds, Norm. Which 20 pounds, Norm, gets broads and limousines and a house anywhere you could think of. And not 40 pounds. Not even 60 pounds, Norm, which is $750,000. Norm, 80 pounds. 80 pounds, Norm. That kid's intestines were down in his testicles with a weight of that suitcase.
Runyon-esque, dare I say. Like 3 of you know what that is. The David Mamet episode. You may know him as the writer of Glengarry Glen Ross. In the final season, they were looking into new writers and they created some great send-off episodes, with this one in particular being the best. An example of Henry's terrible luck in a really offbeat episode set far away from the hill.
Nobody knows. Nobody saw me get in that car.
No one knows where I am. If I go back tomorrow, I can go back and this never happened. You take the car. Has guns in it. Food. Take it. I stopped by the road. I'll say I stopped, and you'll have ours. Someone stole my car.
Even after all that, there's plenty of good stuff in here I've left out. But if you only watch this best of selection, then at least you've got a fair bit to go on. It's only, 7 years of material? Oh, good lord.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no.
For 7 extraordinary years, we are more grateful than we can ever say. We will never forget what we've had, the blessing of it, and we will never forget you for supporting us. And we say tonight, thank you, bless you, good luck, and goodbye.
The tremors of Hill Street would be felt throughout the industry soon after it ended. The cast and crew all went into various new jobs, some still performing, others in new industry positions. Oh my god. Travanti rarely offered to promote the show beyond its lifespan, but the others all seemed to come out in force to show their appreciation for the show and for each other.
We've seen each other through the deaths of our parents, we've seen each other through our entire lives. If I ever had, have a brother, if I'd ever want to have a man for a brother.
That would be called necrophilia.
There was naturally a desire to see Bochco produce more hits, which led to a variety of new concepts that also saw their share of success. Some of his more off-the-wall ideas never quite worked out. You ever hear of cop rock? No? There's a reason for that. But others went on to become game changers in their own right. LA Law carries a lot of Hill Street's qualities, with an ensemble cast and procedural setting. It even has a lot of familiar faces to Hill Street fans. The difference now is that it's set in a super rich sector at the height of the 80s, and this leads to a new magical concoction of satire and probing moral discussion.
I felt kind of cheated. And now I look at you. I mean, you come down here, you get the big speech about civil duty, your obligation to uphold the law and serve your community, and all you get for your trouble is bull semen.
One of my favourites, and worth a video in its own right, I guess, if I got another fucking 10 years to spare.
My father kept a mistress who made porno movies?
Dennis Franz would stay a cop for a little longer. He actually went into a Hill Street spin-off show called Beverly Hills Bunts, which was, also bad, and had already enjoyed work as a Hollywood actor.
It's Christmas!
Soon he was being eyed up for the second major cop show created by Bochco, NYPD Blue.
Hey! Ipsa this, you pissy little bitch!
Another spiritual successor to Hill Street, NYPD was smaller and more of an intense drama. David Caruso had gotten his start in Hill Street before starring here, but difficulties with his personality led to LA Law's own Jimmy Smits stepping in from season 2 onwards. From that point, it becomes a classic Bochco show with some solid characters much closer to Hill Street style.
Boy, that's sure gonna be clean.
But did any of this overwrite the brilliance of where it all came from? Not particularly. In fact, I've yet to find any show that fills the void Hill Street left. A true ensemble, brutally outspoken, funny and sad. Its lack of filter and self-deprecatory nature allowed it to explore creative pathways that TV still benefits from today, with a writing style yet to be matched. A series of one-act plays dedicated to ordinary people, often with tough lives and few happy resolutions. The only validation they had for their thankless jobs was the understanding that it had to be done, and that there were people out there who needed it to be done. This dysfunctional group of people came together time and time again to try and make things right, and I couldn't be happier to have known them. It is my fervent hope that you may get to know them too. Alright, let's roll. And as always,
Let's be careful out there.
Your Cayetano types win prizes. Your Chesley types, and now your Goldblum types get promoted. And my types, I say it's a little like the food you're eating, Harry.
My food?
Pumpernickel bagel. White bread, Ben. Whatever happened to white bread? The bread of white Anglo-Saxon males. No wonder we can't get promoted. We can't even eat in this department anymore.
That man is a gifted social critic.